The WWE Draft 2024 is this week, ladies and gentlemen, starting on Friday and will conclude on Monday on Raw. But who should be the number one draft pick this year? That is the big question we're going to kick off this show with. And then it's Q&A format. We're going to open up to you, all putting your questions, everything WWE only on this one. We can talk about the obviously the draft. We're going to talk about Becky Lynch, of course, winning the Women's World Championship. Also, we've got the releases that happened in the last few days as well, and anything WWE related as well. And Steve, you're with me in the house as well. Great to have you on board as always. It's great to have you here. And obviously, are you excited for the WWE draft?
Yes and no. Like, it's always exciting when they do it because it's always exciting for them to present it, and the way it's done is always like a new thing. And yes, I'm excited for fresh new stories, but it kind of feels like, I don't know, like the last couple of months, like it just seems to me like there hasn't been split brands. It's kind of just been one roster. So maybe it's a good way to freshen up, just start all over again. And like we was talking about this off air about greatest draft ever, and it's like I'm there's a reason why I'm not too excited. Like, I know you're a big draft guy and you look forward to it, and it's an exciting time of year where we get to see what stories we're possibly going to get for the next 12 months. So I just like, for me, it does. I don't think it has the greatest track record, if you know what I mean. Like, just to throw it out there, at one point we did have a wild card Raw, which was kind of like, what's the point of the draft?
The glorious Vince McMahon 2019 days. Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from. Yeah, there's been some ups and downs with the draft throughout the period, but what I have to say is that for me, it's always this sense of it's a new year. It's a way fresh start. We get some new wrestlers on different shows. We get to freshen up the storylines, things that we've seen over and over again now for tournaments. They're starting to feel a bit stale. So I like this fresh ideas moving forward. And we can start speculating as well afterwards the draft. What's going to be the SummerSlam matches? What's going to be the Survivor Series, the Rumble? What's going to happen at next year's WrestleMania, because what's going to happen with this draft is all going to set things in stone. So we're looking forward to getting excited about it, talking about it in our own way. There've been plenty of videos on this channel already because, yes, I am a draft guy. I love the draft season. And obviously, the big question I've got into starting off with this video, which before we go to the chat, not that question. We've got quite a few questions saved in for today, but this question I'm going to ask you now: who should be the number one draft pick in the WWE Draft 2024? Obviously, Roman Reigns has been the guy for the last number of years. He's always been the number one. But when you look at it this year, obviously Cody Rhodes is the one that beats him at WrestleMania. You look at the thumbnail, for example, we've got Becky Lynch on there now, the women's world champion. Obviously, Bayley, obviously winning the championship as well. She deserves her flowers. And there are other superstars as well that you could make the argument. Obviously, if Rhea Ripley wasn't injured, she could have been a potential with the role she's been on. CM Punk, Seth Rollins. Who should take that number one draft spot in your opinion?
For me, obviously, it has to be Cody. He is the big money draw. He is the guy that is going to bring most of your viewership into your show, which is the logical reason why you would pick him as your number one. If you was to say to me anyone outside of a champion, aside from the obvious ones like a Drew, a Seth, a Punk, whoever, I'd actually go with Braun Breaker. I think he's going to have a really good year this year. I'm really looking forward to what he does just in general over the next 12 months. Like, he's come off a great run in NXT as champion. He's just finished a great run as a tag team champion with Baron Corbin. But I think, like, as a call-up, for example, he's probably the most I'm excited for this year.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Braun, how it's going to turn out for him. And I actually have a funny feeling that the draft could be a great opportunity. Same about being a draft guy, by the way, not just storylines with the talents, but I think it should be a great opportunity for storylines with the GMs as well. They can have a lot of fun with this because
Absolutely.
Nick Aldis has worked so hard to get all these signatures over the line. Braun Breaker being one of them, Jade Cargill, for example, Tiffany Stratton. What if Adam Pearce just takes all of them?
Yep, exactly. You see, it kind of defeated the point of the stories for the last 3 months about who's signing who. Now, the fact that we've got to this point where it's like, oh yeah, you've signed Braun Breaker, yeah, but I'm going to take him to Raw. What was the point? Like, I get it. Almost feels like they're building Survivor Series already. Do you know what I mean? If one of those superstars automatically changes over to the other brand.
I'm not against it. Look, I love the War Games format. I think War Games is awesome. But you know what? I don't mind a Raw versus SmackDown match. I like my traditional Survivor Series matches. I would have one for the men, one for the women. Do something for tag team related as well. Boom, your card is sorted. Fantastic for War Games. Survivor Series, you've got your 5 matches sorted. But to answer the question myself, I think you're bang on the money. There's nobody else. Cody Rhodes is the one, the American Nightmare, running. He's the face of the company. He's the guy to beat Roman Reigns. He's the one that's, going to be everywhere, doing all the appearances, all the media, all the charity work as well. And of course, it's in your top storylines and will be in your main event of the upcoming PLEs, just like Backlash will be taking on AJ Styles. So yeah, for me, it seems to be a foregone conclusion. Cody should be the one.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird how they do this, because from the impression I get is that Cody is essentially the WWE champion on SmackDown, and from what I get, that the Netflix deal doesn't come in until after roughly draft time next year. The Netflix deal doesn't come in after the draft next year, and normally, historically, Raw has the number one pick. I guess with it being on SmackDown this year, maybe they get the number one pick. So it's going to be interesting, because I think that's what I think they're going to do. Is Cody is going to stay on SmackDown for the next 12 months until that Netflix deal kicks in, and then he's going all the way to Raw.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, I think Netflix kicks in at the start of 2025. So I believe that's actually Royal Rumble season when it's going to kick in. So I think this will affect it later down the line. That's my understanding.
Yeah. See, I heard the TV deal don't kick in until sort of May, June time. That's what I heard anyway.
I could be wrong. Anyone in the chat know? Let us know. That would be really good right now. We can see if we know. We can maybe do a Google ourselves as well. It'll be quite interesting. But we will be going into the comments in a couple of seconds time. I want one more question. I brought up on the screen, so I'm going to ask it now. You can feel free to as well join in the chat as well. Let us know your thoughts with this as well. But what's your favorite format of the WWE draft? Because obviously we've seen different formats over the years as well. The current format we've got is that the GMs come out and make their selection. Like, I picked this person, was on my show last year, but I'm still going to pick them again because I want them there. Is that a good way to do it, or do you prefer the old random generator? You know, we used to have all the faces pop on the screen in about 2 seconds time that give you a migraine, and then you actually get the one that's given to you. Or do you prefer an idea like this that we used to see, where it was like a match where you'd actually earn your draft pick, because Raw versus SmackDown would have a wrestler versus a wrestler. The winner of the match for that particular show would get their draft pick.
Do you know what? That's not the one I thought he was going to mention. I thought he was going to mention the old bingo ball system where it's a tumbler with a load of balls and a load of names. But I'm not a fan of... the only one I like is the draft system, the NFL draft system, because it's the only one to me that comes across as an authentic draft. With the randomizer that we used to get in the in between matches or whenever, again, it's premeditated. I didn't really like it. Same with the whole bingo ball situation. Dude can pull out a ball and you kind of already know who he's going to say because it's pre-scripted. The match system doesn't really work for me either, for the fact that you could put, say for instance, you could put Ricochet against Logan Paul, but then you're going to draft someone completely different, and it has no effect on the people inside the match. And then the person inside the match can end up being drafted to the other show. Even if they win, say for instance, Ricochet wins for a Raw example, who's not to say Nick Aldis goes and drafts him to SmackDown? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel authentic to me. Whereas within the NFL draft system, they do, where it's, we get number one pick, you get number two pick. It genuinely feels like this is who we want as our number one pick. Yeah, for me, it is the most authentic way to do it.
So the current system, what we've seen in the last couple of years, that with the GM who comes out and says, "This is my pick here." And thankfully, we don't get the Fox robots celebrating in the back now. That's stopped, thankfully, going forward. So, to be honest, I think it's my favorite as well. I know sometimes there was a bit of repetitiveness of thinking, oh, you were on the same show as last year. But I do get kind of excitement seeing the GMs go on the podium. And I think this year, there's going to be a lot more flavor with it. Nick Aldis there, Adam Pearce there. You've actually got GMs back in as well. So, for me, that's why I used to like it back in the old days. And I think having that there now, I think it's going to make that pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, like the initial one they did, I think it was 2016, I want to say, where they had Mick Foley and Stephanie as Raw. Again, that I love the whole idea of it, the presenting of it, because obviously it came across as a more authentic thing, and like they had a chance to give a reason as to why they were picking this kind of person. Do you know what I mean? So again, I just think it's a more genuine way to do it.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think so for me as well, if I'm being perfectly honest with that. I do used to like the random generator in the day until the time that John Cena got drafted twice in the same show, ended up going to SmackDown and then moving over to Raw. But hey, let's go into the comments anyway, because look, this is a Q&A format. We've got a lot of people watching. Thank you all for tuning in as well for the first 10 minutes as well so far. Make sure to hit the like button. Honestly, you have all been so supportive in the channel of late, and it's helping this channel grow massively. One of the shorts that was done on this channel last week, over 10,000 views. So thank you all for your support for doing so. Hitting that like button, nearly 500 likes on that short. Got it, the support it did. So liking these videos really helps the algorithm on YouTube. Let's kick things off then. We're kicking it with Leo. He says, I feel that WWE are just handling Liv Morgan like the runner-up trophy every chance they get, whether it's the Rumble, the Chamber, a Battle Royal. Liv can't catch a break when do the losses end? Obviously, now Becky Lynch is your new Women's World Champion. And he does actually go on to say, so we're going to tie this all into one. He says, when will she win? Because I'm thinking Backlash. I don't want Liv to win at SummerSlam. If she wins and Rhea comes back, and Liv will barely get a title reign because she's going to give it back to Rhea. So, obviously not faith there that Liv would actually win the rivalry with Rhea at this point. But I kind of agree to a point. I was a bit disappointed that Liv didn't win on Raw. I was very confident and very like, it should be the one. But at the same time, I think that there's still a story to tell here in the meantime that Rhea's out, because Rhea's going to be out for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, the only reason I can think that I agree with Leo. Like, Liv always is the bridesmaid and never the bride in this case. Like, Rumbles. Like, as soon as we had that close on Raw, and I just saw Becky and Liv on there, I just got flashbacks to the Rumble with Rhea and Liv. The only reason why I could think that they've done this is that they're going to separate Liv from that title. So Becky's going to go to one show, and Liv's going to go to the opposite show. That's the only thing I can think why they've done it. They're not going to want to have Liv as champion, and then like I said, there must be something in place. Like I'm going to say, we're going to see this week with the draft. I imagine that's what's going to happen. Liv's going to go be on whatever show Bayley's on, and that's going to be the story going forward, which is a fresh take on it. Becky's the safe bet, and I think that's the biggest problem that everyone had with it. Like, even Nia would have been a good choice. Do you know what I mean? Because even Liv's got history with Nia. Then it would have made some sort of story for those two going forward. But yeah, like I said, I think it's all to do with the draft this week.
The draft could be a key part of it. I mean, originally I had Liv going to SmackDown until Rhea's injury. Then I was convinced that she'd stay on Raw because I thought this week she was winning a title. That didn't happen. So now the question goes thrown in there, and you could be right. I mean, she could be alongside Bayley on SmackDown, whether she'd be the top heel on SmackDown as well. Say Damage Control move to Raw, for example. It freshens and opens things wide open. But when Rhea returns, she's going to want Liv Morgan. So maybe does Rhea end up on SmackDown as well if that happens? Or is it the case that just the champions change and that Bayley's on Raw and then Becky goes to SmackDown? There's so many different variables, and that's what makes me so excited and find the draft so fun. However, just to be, I suppose, a devil's advocate and play it on the flip side, say they stay on the same show, because we have Backlash coming up. Obviously, that's not going to be draft affected, if you will. We still only got like 2 matches booked for this show, and I believe we're going to get some women's championship matches added to this show. And I think that now Becky has won the title, I could see a rematch with Liv. I could see even Nia Jax being added into a triple threat match, and I can see Liv Morgan winning that title on Backlash.
Yeah, I mean, that was the other thing. I kind of thought that this is going to be a really short-lived Becky run with this championship. The only thing, I mean, it's maybe like, oh, let's send the crowd home happy, let's have Becky win it kind of thing. But even I think that most of that crowd wanted Liv to win it. This is one of my problems with when and how they do the draft as well, is the fact that we have a pay-per-view in 2 weeks' time, and I guarantee you we're going to have matches on that card that are going to have people from 2 different shows competing against each other. And it almost ruins Backlash for me because, for instance, Priest is going to be defending against Jey Uso. If those two get separated in the draft, you kind of know that Priest is still going to win. He's probably going to win anyway because he's going to lose in his first title defense. But yeah, it almost ruins the mystery about it. If you already know, like, if you know what I mean, we're all wise enough and smart enough to know how wrestling works, but there's certain things that you can still protect. And do you know what I mean? Having people from opposite shows wrestle on a pay-per-view card just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I totally understand it. Like you say, sometimes it adds a predictable nature to the first PLE that's interrupted with this. And obviously, Backlash is that one this year. And obviously, it can be a case that I suppose the card could be a little bit disrupted depending on what happens with the draft in these next couple of days. And maybe that's the reason why not so many matches have been announced for the show at this point. So it's an interesting take on it. Maybe that's why we don't know so much at this point. Eric Douglas giving his picks here for number 1 draft pick for Raw, for the Bloodline, and the whole of the Bloodline as well. Then for SmackDown, Cody Rhodes, and for NXT, Shinsuke Nakamura. Obviously, if that was the number 1 draft picks in that way. And this leads me to the next question to you, actually, because Eric giving some good suggestions for those number 1 draft picks, but NXT, how are they going to take part in this draft? What's the role for them? Because are they going to be like Eric probably, I don't know if that's necessarily what he's suggesting, but say it was a case of like Raw, then SmackDown, then NXT. I know NXT is now going to be seen as the 3rd brand, but goodness, NXT can have a stacked roster with, all these talents that are arguably too good for developmental.
I think the safest way for them to play it is going to be a case of, depending on how many people get drafted from NXT, is how many picks NXT gets.
Yes.
And if you're going to, if so, for instance, NXT calls up 4 people, then NXT are going to get the choice of 2 picks from each show. I think that's the safest way to do it. Then that way you kind of have your reason as to why 90% of the NXT roster is staying exactly where they are.
I think that's a sensible way as well, because obviously that way you don't disrupt the draft too much. And say, for example, NXT gets their first draft pick in like draft pool 4, for example. Like you mentioned, I don't know, Ilya Dragunov is drafted to SmackDown, for example. Let's throw that one out there. And then all of a sudden you go, right, okay, well, he's been taken from NXT. Now, Ava, you go out to say who you want to replace who's available in the current draft pool, and then she can turn around and say, I want Shinsuke Nakamura, and then boom, that's your trader, because it kind of makes sense as well. It fits with the flow because you can kind of take people at the right level as well, because if it's in the top draft picks, why would she not take a Seth Rollins? Why would Ava not take Cody Rhodes? Why would she not take the Bloodline? It would, and to be fair for NXT, I would say there must be lunacy is booking it with having the Bloodline, because the whole point is to take the brand and develop the next stars for tomorrow using a bit of flavor with some experienced talent now, but not your top main event of WrestleMania talent.
Yeah, exactly. Again, there's I'm sure they have some way of doing it, but like I said, the way we've just discussed these last couple of minutes here is probably going to be the way to do it. Because you're right. Who wouldn't be NXT? Like Dragunov gets picked as the 3rd choice overall. Why isn't Ava just going to come out and go, I'm going to take Rhea Ripley? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't logically make sense. So I'm sure they have some way of doing it. They teased it obviously a couple of weeks ago when the 3 GMs were in the same room as each other. So it's going to be fun to see. Just hopefully it's done in a way that we're not going to be back here next week going, well, that was the most stupidest way they could have possibly done that.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll have to see how it'll play out. Hopefully, it'll take our suggestion. Sid here, good. Thank you for joining us, Sid. By the way, who do you want to see get called up to the main roster from NXT? Who do you see moving to NXT from the main roster? So, I'm going to ask you, NXT, this question.
I've only got 4 names in mind. One is an either or, and then I have 3 other names. So for me, it's either going to be Dragunov or Trick Williams, depending on who comes out as champion from their match. I think like if Trick Williams is going to win, Dragunov's coming up, vice versa. Carmelo Hayes is the obvious one that's coming up. Braun's already come up, so I can't include him. Baron Corbin, I think, needs to come back to the main roster. He's not doing anything on NXT. If he's not going to be fighting for that world title, I don't see the point in him being on NXT. I think he'd be much better suited to work in the mid-card division with the likes of Carmelo Hayes, with the likes of LA Knight. I think there would be a lot more for him to do on the main roster. And my other one is Kiana James, just because the women's division, I struggle to find someone that hasn't already come. Like, for instance, if Tiffany was still there, Tiffany would have been my number 1 pick, but already been called up. So I'm trying to think of a women's wrestler I'd like to see come up. Kiana James probably is the best one at this minute that I feel can come up and just nicely slot in there. Whereas if you use, say, Roxanne's already champion, Live Akira, I think there's still a story there to play out in NXT, which is why, again, I went with Kiana James.
Absolutely. There's so many talents in NXT that are ready for the next step. Like you say, Carmelo Hayes is definitely, I think, a guarantee at this point. He's almost had his swan song from NXT after losing the cage match. I think Dragunov is coming up. I do think that, I do believe Roxanne Perez will come up as well. I think both are going to drop their championships tonight, spring breaking. Spoilers if you haven't seen the predictions video already, peeps. Yeah, I mean, those are probably some of the big ones there. I'd keep an eye out for Gallus as well, because apparently Dwayne The Rock Johnson on his return to the ring. So I think that could be a little bit of a reward. They've not been doing anything actually meantime anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised if they got to get the nod and get a call up, because they're not doing anything in NXT either. But who do you want to see then go from for the main roster to NXT?
Put Gallus in a faction with Drew McIntyre.
Yes.
Sorry, what was that question? Who would I like to see go down to NXT?
Yes.
There's only, again, a handful of names that I reckon should go down. One is not necessarily going down. It's more of a case of, to go to NXT, yes, I do have a couple of names. One is Karrion Kross and the Final Testament. I think that they're just going to get wasted on the main roster. I think they need to go back and kind of be the dominant force of NXT and kind of almost be gatekeepers for that brand for the next 12 months at least. Gallows and Anderson and Michin, because I think Gallows and Anderson are a veteran tag team. I think they'd be great to add to that tag team division just because they've got a lot of young guys there. There's not too many that I would say are going to come up in the draft. So put Gallows and Anderson back down there. And yeah, Michin, just because I think another experienced female wrestler, she can go down and win that NXT women's title and get a decent run in there and then come back up in 12 months' time.
Yeah, I mean, so really good shouts there. My first one I have to say is Final Testament. I put them on the thumbnail for the video I did, so it'd be criminal not to give them a mention as well and say I agree with you. I think that, like you said, there was such a big deal in NXT before, so the fact that now they can actually have the opportunity to rebuild themselves in NXT again to then come up stronger the next time because they've been released and they've had to come back to the company. So that's how bad they were booked the first time. They're finding their way this time round, and it's not quite clicked. So NXT could just be the right place for them now. I think Natalia should go down there full time. I know she's doing work down there right now anyway, but I think that someone that's a general in the female locker room, she's someone that can put matches together, help the next talents of tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to a match with Lola Vice next week. Should be a decent one. She had a great match with Roxanne Perez recently. She's done great matches with Cora Jade in the past, so I think it'll be good for her down there. Nikki Cross is one I think would be crying to go to NXT, to be fair. Not been on TV for a long time, and I'd like to see her do something with Tatum Paxley. And I think that could be quite fun to see that sort of partnership or even some sort of rivalry between them two could be quite interesting. So last name I'll throw out, Tegan Knox, just lost on the main roster. I think that she's not had that chance to really be blossomed in NXT where she had the chance to be the top star in that division. She was sort of like one of the women that were just in the division when she was called up. So I think personally for me, I'd like to see her actually have a run with either the championship or in around the main event scene of NXT. So great questions there, Sid. We appreciate that. We hope we give you some.
Yeah, I mean, just to say on the note of NXT, the reason why I would suggest these people go back to NXT as well is it just gives some of them a chance to almost reinvent themselves. Like that's what NXT is for. Like if I was to throw, for instance, I'd say Apollo Crews. As much as I like Apollo Crews as an in-ring wrestler, his character just is forever changing, and he just like he came up too early without an established character. He then got one. He then goes back to NXT, establishes a character, but then is called back to main roster, has another character. He seems to be lost there, and it's like he's one of them guys that just needs to go back down. Start all over again, just completely start. Like there are guys that have done it that still haven't found their character, like Scripps for one, like Reggie. He's just like, I don't know if that guy's ever going to find a character, but do you know what I mean? NXT is the place for these guys to go back to and reinvent themselves and start all over again.
Not when he's called Scripps anyway. That's the first thing that needs to change, if I'm honest, with Scripps. Poor Reggie. It was
the Lucha Master that put me off it.
Yeah, I think so. Same as well there. But I'm enjoying the group he's in at the moment. I hope that he can blossom further. I think Jada Parker, particularly, in the group's got a very bright future. Ray in the house, hope you're doing well. Ray, he says that I don't see all the fuss from the fans with Liv Morgan did not win. Happy that Becky won the title, and there are some Becky fans out there. I remember when I did the post on it, quite a few were hoping for Becky to win. So yeah, I mean, Becky's a safe pair of hands, isn't she? As you said earlier.
I was literally just about to say it's the safest bet. Do you know what I mean? You can't go wrong with Becky as champion. I just think that a lot of people it's almost like Liv at this point has a story to finish. Do you know what I mean? And she needs to be crowned women's champion again or world champion.
The thing is, she's got this revenge tour. I mean, it would be over this tour if she won the title that quickly. So maybe that is the story. The story going. Maybe as well because Becky wants unfinished business with Rhea. Liv has unfinished business. Maybe it's just a situation where both of these two have a battle for 2 or 3 months to see who's actually going to be the champion when Rhea comes back, and it's a case of who wants it more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe that is what they're going for. Like I said a minute ago, if the reason why Liv didn't win it is because they want to put her against Bayley or something. Or this is the good thing about the faction is the good thing about the draft is that factions tend to get drawn all together. So, for instance, if Liv is going to get drawn to SmackDown, Bayley's still there, is a chance that all of Judgment Day could go there. So, do you know what I mean? The possibility to do that story later on down the line is still there. It's just getting to that point, unfortunately. Like I said, I can understand people's frustration, but like I said, they know what they're doing. Unfortunately, well, I say they know what they're doing. They have an idea. Whether they know what they're doing is a completely different thing.
That's very true indeed. That's a very well point made there. Richard giving his predictions there for the call-ups there. Kamala Hayes, Ruka, Ilya Dragunov, and Tatum Paxley. I believe they're saying all to Raw as well. Roger Sims at the house says he laughed. Go on.
I was going to say Sol Ruka. I think has only just come back from injury, so I don't know if she's going to be main roster ready. Tatum Paxley is a good shout, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Solberger's got a beach brawl to look forward to tonight at Spring Breaking. That could be quite fun and interesting how they put that together. Roger LOL'd when Drew McIntyre said to Sheamus, burger after burger after burger. I need a t-shirt of that, to be fair.
I like it when they do stuff like this, just for the fact that they've used social media and they've taken outside, like they haven't decided to ignore what everyone in the world is saying, and they're actually using it as part of a storyline. It just means that it shows that the company is moving with the times, and do you know what I mean? Social media exists in the world of WWE.
Absolutely. And Sheamus said he could drop the weight, but Drew can't drop the stupid. It's a good comeback. Erik says, do you remember when Cameron Grimes was called up and then immediately beat Corbin? I think it was a record too. I think it was a record for the men's action. Absolutely. I think that obviously Leah beating Natalia is the fastest for the females, but yeah, I believe it was for the men's around the time period. But Cameron Grimes, obviously, we'll touch on it. WWE releases Cameron Grimes one has been announced today. Very heartfelt post from him on social media as well. For those who haven't seen it, do recommend to go and check it out. I've actually featured Cameron Grimes in a couple of these videos with the draft videos. I missed his Moneybags character at NXT. I feel like when he was stripped of that, he was stripped of a character, and I think that was a part of the letdown because he's fantastic in ring. I don't know what went wrong really with Grimes, and why not more was made of him on the main roster.
If I remember correctly, I think he got injured pretty soon after coming up to the main roster, which is one of the things why. But dude, it's just another story of another failed NXT call up. For me, his character is very one-dimensional. Like, he is a Southern guy. It was kind of cool in NXT, like when he became this sort of multi-millionaire and like wins the $1 Million Championship. Like, it was a great story with LA Knight, but I just think his character is just very one-dimensional. Sorry, and it's hard to come up with a lot of narrative for a character that's one-dimensional. Like, it's not. You can turn him heel and face as much as you want, but when he's presented the same way every week, it's not really going to change much, is it? So, I don't get me wrong. I think Trevor Lee's going to go on to do great things. I would love to see him in TNA because I think his character work would excel vastly in TNA.
Absolutely, yeah, I would love to see it as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he was someone that went to AEW either, but I think TNA is the place I would like to see him land if he's going to go somewhere. But he said he's got a drive to prove WWE wrong. So some have done that in the past, and some have come back to be champions. We're talking Drew McIntyre, for example, being one of them. So Cody Rhodes, current champion, yeah. So there you go. It can be done. Speaking of TNA, a couple of TNA comments we'll throw up quickly. Zayn said it went crazy when Broken Matt Hardy returned to TNA. Of course, appearing at the end of Rebellion. Not seen Rebellion, but I've seen the clip. It looked pretty wild. A lot of big reactions as well. The Broken Matt Hardy character as well. I know Matt Hardy's gone to social media and said that he's still a free agent, so he's not signed. Perhaps, and I'm just speculating here now. Maybe
I was going to say, I think you were going to say something Cole was going to say. Go on.
I think he's biding time and doing something for a couple of months with TNA until his services may be needed in a particular faction in WWE.
Oh, I wasn't actually going to say that. I was going to say that, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a certain broken Matt Hardy win that TNA World Championship, and all of a sudden he pops up on a WWE show with that championship at some point in the future.
Oh, okay. Well, it's two different ideas. I like your idea. Maybe you could do both. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Has been TNA WWE partnership in the past, but obviously, for me, the people wondering which faction I'm talking about, I think you probably all do. But obviously, the Bo Dallas faction, obviously, the idea of the White Six, people, that have worked with Bray Wyatt in the past, coming back to actually work as one super faction could be something that could work. Obviously, you're talking Eric Rowan, who now is not taking bookings, so you would assume he's signed. Braun Strowman will eventually come back from injury. Alexa Bliss will eventually come back. Matt Hardy could eventually come back. So you've got a bit of a core there of what could be a perfect tribute to Bray Wyatt, having that sort of style of faction moving forward.
It's almost like the Addams Family, isn't it? Like, it's the most oddball match of characters to stick into a faction that shouldn't work. But like, I really hope it does work and they pull it off, because it'd just be some crazy stuff.
To quote Matt Hardy, I think it'd be absolutely wonderful. I won't do the laugh though, because that would be horrific, I think, for everybody. Dislike buttons will be going through the roof. CD in the house, good to see you. CD says he's happy that Sami Callihan is back in TNA. I haven't seen that clip, but I know that he's back. It's too late for him to bring his tag team back now with Rich Swann, as Rich Swann is with AJ Francis. Very true. Zayn asking the question now also says, are you with the fans that wanted Liv to win? Or are you with the fans that wanted Becky to win the title?
I think my problem was that it was a very small battle royal. Like, you've got the draft at the end of the week. Why didn't you have all the SmackDown competitors in there as well? And there would have been an excuse to maybe put some emphasis on that someone else, like for instance, an Io Shirai could have maybe won the title. Do you know what I mean? Drafts at the end of the week. What difference is it going to make? You could have had all the SmackDown women in this battle royal. I said, I just think it's a safe bet with Becky. I would like to have seen Liv win it, but I'm okay with biding my time for the sake of the story.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not on either side of a fan base. It sounds probably a weird thing to say, but I am someone that has believed that if the right thing for the story is for Liv Morgan to be the Women's World Champion. I think that's the right direction moving forward. If they want to tell a story in the meantime, as I said earlier on about who wants it more between Becky and Liv, because both have history with Rhea Ripley, I'm fine for them to play that story. And I actually believe Becky has been good at putting people over in the past. She was the one that gave Liv an opportunity that they had day one a couple of years ago for a program. She pushed for that program. Same as, Becky dropped the title to Lyra Valkyria, made Tiffany Stratton NXT last year. Tegan Knox as well. So I think that Becky may drop the title to Liv Morgan. It'd be maybe a case of when rather than if, but I will say the latest it will be is King and Queen of the Ring. That'll be the latest time Becky will drop that title, in my opinion, because I don't even know if she's signed a new contract yet, so she's not going to keep it for too long. She's not signed one.
It's very true. You're right in what you're saying. I think it was just predictable. I think that's what everyone was just upset with.
I think so as well. Then CD says, I'm just tired of seeing Becky Lynch with that. It's time to push someone different. King Williams says, I think a Backlash Dom helps Liv win the title from Becky based off the tease we got with them on Raw. That would be a bit dirty from Dom, wouldn't it, to do that to Mummy when she's away? Obviously, the little stare down backstage.
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to remember the actual interaction because, I was trying to think what actually went on. But yes, I do remember now. It has to make sense for me. I think that's the biggest problem I have with it is I think Dom would more be out there to try and cost Liv the title, but who knows? We'll see.
We'll have to wait and see. CD says he thinks we're getting Roman Reigns versus Seth freaking Rollins at SummerSlam. That would be awesome to see. There was a reason to do that match. I think they will be on the same brand as well going forward. Will that be a Raw or will that be a SmackDown? Nick, Steve, do you think that they could be on the same brand after this? Obviously, they could be, but do you think they will be?
It's too hard to call. This is the thing. There is the question of should everyone be eligible for the draft? Is there anyone that shouldn't move brand? And it's kind of not really. I don't think there's any reason for anyone to not be susceptible to the draft. You could be right; they could end up on the same show. I think it's almost like they've laid the beginnings of that story from WrestleMania, so that kind of probably has to happen within the next 12 months. Just like I presume that they want to do Cody versus Rock as well. So the only thing is we've seen Roman versus Seth so many times over the years, and it's kind of like that for me has to be at the ending of their story. We've had Seth betray Roman, we've had Roman get his shot back now. So whatever they're gonna do has to essentially be the finale with their feud.
Absolutely, yeah, I think so as well. They've had the thing with WrestleMania, like you say there, and it's been 10 years in the making. So if they do this, it has to be one more time. It has to be a big finale, and it would be great to see it go down if that is the case. I want to say a massive thank you. This has never happened before. This is the first time this has ever happened. Martin Courier, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. I really appreciate it. It's very kind of you to do that. I never asked for it, but I'm very, very grateful. So thank you so much, Martin. He asked the question: who is winning this year's draft? Raw, SmackDown, or NXT?
Because the champions aren't brand specific anymore, I don't know. It's going to be Raw or SmackDown, as long as it's not that year that SmackDown got absolutely rinsed of all their talent and ended up with no one. I don't know. I think this is probably going to be the most anticipated, possibly the best draft ever, just because the fact is that creative is really good, the wrestling is really good. There's so much that they can potentially do for the next 12 months that I don't know. NXT is barely going to get touched. I'll be honest with you now. NXT is basically keeping 90% of their roster. They're losing like 4 people. They're gaining 4 people. That'll be NXT for the next 12 months. I mean, dude, I presume Raw maybe has to win just for the fact that, like I just checked a little while ago, the Netflix deal thing. Apparently, it does start early 2025. So I'm thinking that they have to do something special for that. So I'm presuming Raw is going to win this draft.
I think Raw is winning the draft as well for the exact same reason. Netflix, they want all the storylines to be cinema. So, I mean, if that's the case, the Bloodline, for example, it makes sense to put Roman on Raw to move everything in that direction. So, I think Raw is going to be the place to be. I do think The Rock will be a free agent. I think that him and Cody will happen at SummerSlam. I think Cody will be on SmackDown, which obviously is a big get for SmackDown. But I think that a lot of the sort of I don't know, star names. I think maybe like big characters as well. I think that's the sort of stuff you're going to get on Raw, and I think Raw, for that reason, may win the draft. I can see SmackDown being more like the wrestling show, the indie show, if you want, going forward.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, as well, depending on how they're planning on presenting Raw when it goes to Netflix, because obviously Netflix is a paid subscription service. You have to be of a certain age to buy to obviously get a Netflix subscription. So there is a potential for Raw to be a bit more sort of 18 rated once it goes to Netflix. So for instance, if we get a White 6 maybe on Raw, we can see some more spooky, crazy stuff, maybe some darker stuff, maybe some more blood. So yeah, I think Raw probably is going to walk out the winner this year.
So it's a Monday Night Raw for us. Let us know what you think in the comments. And again, Martin, going to say a massive thank you to you. It's very kind of you to do that. Thank you so much. In the meantime, I'm going to ask another question for you. As you mentioned it there a second ago about people being eligible or not. Should champions be eligible to be drafted in the draft, or should the champions remain, loyal with the shows that they're on?
You can do this either 2 ways. I mean, now that we don't have any brand-specific championships, now that they've got rid of the Raw and SmackDown tag team titles, and we don't have to go through that awkward stuff and the women's ones as well, so we don't have to go through that awkward transition of swapping titles over. Why not? Champions should be eligible for all shows. Or if it's a case of they should all be free agents and they should be able to appear on any show. Because especially with Cody being WWE champion, you would want to think they'd have him on both shows as much as possible every week. Again, because he is the draw, he pulls in the numbers. They're going to Netflix next year. If he gets drawn to SmackDown, they're going to want a reason for him to appear on Raw. So they either should be, like I said, they should either be eligible for the draft, or they should all be free agents to appear as and when they like.
See, I like that idea. I don't really consider that, because that's like the very early days of the draft when you had people where it was like, okay, right, when there was an undisputed champion, they could appear on both shows because they were the champion, they were the star.
Yes.
Then we had where it was a champion for each show, yes, but it kind of almost feels a little bit like, well, these are the people then that can earn more money, because this is the luxury of having the championship, because you can appear on Raw, appear on SmackDown, you get double the appearances, double the merchandise, double everything that happens straight into your pocket. So I like that idea a lot. And I do feel in a way they should be eligible now, because when it was Raw and SmackDown themed titles, that used to wind me up, and I used to think that they should stay loyal to where they are. However, I now have the same opinion as you, which are kind of boring.
Yeah.
We have the same opinions.
I mean, yeah, the only thing, obviously, it kind of complicated when it comes to things like tag team titles, because we do have 2 lots of men's titles, which I'm not against even now. Like because of the fact we get a lot more tag team wrestling, and there's a lot more male superstars than there is female superstars. So it kind of makes sense for them to have 2 separate tag divisions. Like that's the only sort of niche you could probably say, but I'm still happy to have 2 men's tag team champions.
Yeah, I am as well. I think, especially when we see now as well what's happened with the new designs of the tag team titles as well. Love the WWE tag team titles in particular.
Oh,
tasty
tasty
things.
gorgeous.
I want to win them
Gorgeous.
myself.
Yeah, do you know, they are just reminding me of the old World Tag Team. Is it the World Tag Team titles they are, or the whatever ones are, the ones that got shown on SmackDown last week? They are stunning.
Beautiful things they are. Absolutely beautiful. Erik here says, I want 7 people called up. Lyra Valkyria, Trick Williams, Roxanne Perez, Cora Jade, did I say Lyra Valkyria? Anyway,
yeah.
Josh Briggs, Gallus, and Lexus King there. So that's the ones that Erik wants seen called up during the draft there. So thank you for that there. Going down, Erik wants to see Shinsuke Nakamura going in there, the Good Brothers, and Final Testament as a whole, which are good selections there. And that would definitely add some depth to NXT. Zayn with a question now. Who do you think will be the first women's North American champion? Zayn believes Thea Howell will be the person to win that title. Who do you have currently as the first NXT North American champion for the women?
What is there a match that's been announced, or is it a tournament? What is it exactly? I don't know.
Nothing's been announced yet. I believe that could be probably a tournament. You wouldn't be put past the Battle Royal, but I'd like to think it'd be a tournament.
Yeah, I would like to see it done as a tournament. Thea Hell's a good shout. If not, someone like JC Jane or Gigi Dolan. Like Gigi, I've got a feeling Gigi's going to run out her contract and leave anyway. From the impression I've got recently, that she's not quite happy in WWE in a general. Probably wants to leave. She wants to go back to being who was her character in the Indies? I forget now. But yeah, what did you say? Sorry,
was it like Patricia Kelly?
It's something Kelly or something like Killer Kelly, maybe something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I got the impression she wants to leave because she kind of feels a bit stale and lost in NXT. JC Jane, since being in Toxic Attraction, has done some great work. I think that she'd be a great shout as well for first ever Women's North American Champion.
Some great shouts, both of them there. I'm going to go for Fallon Henley. I think that she's doing tremendous work in NXT. Hugely underrated. And I wouldn't be surprised if that final actually was Fallon Henley and Kiana James. That would be my early prediction now. But it could also be Lola Vice could be in that position. And Eric Douglas says, call me crazy. You're crazy, Eric. But I can see a call up for Lola Vice. It could happen. You never know.
Yeah, they're just... Especially, I think, like I said, now that NXT has a women's mid-card title, I don't see that many women coming up in the draft just because the women's division is already so stacked. And it's like the women's tag teams can't even get on TV at the minute. Like, we've had Alba Fire and I forget her tag team partner. Isla Dawn and Alba Fire. Yeah, they've gone from this dark brooding tag team that apparently cursed the women's tag team titles to kind of like backstage segments, and it's kind of like if those guys can't even get on TV at the minute. I don't really want that many women from NXT to come up and follow the same fate, unfortunately.
Yeah, so obviously you have to make sure there's enough TV time and a purpose for people that are being called up. Otherwise, it's best that they remain where they are. But CD here says Triple H is booking Shinsuke Nakamura like a jobber, and Nakamura is booked better by Vince McMahon on the main roster. What do you reckon? I mean, Shin is losing matches, but he's obviously having some more high-profile programs recently with the likes of Cody Rhodes towards the end of last year.
Since his whole reinvention of his character with like the cartoon style graphics and the VTs and stuff like that, I think he's great. But yeah, he's just picking. That's why I would put him down as one to go back to NXT, because he can go back down there and do some more great stuff like he did previously. That's my reason why he's one of my guys that needs to move badly in the draft. Like, even if it's to SmackDown, he just he just needs to pick up wins, and he just needs to go somewhere else and do that. At the minute, we're like, I wouldn't necessarily say Vince booked him better. His job as his run as Intercontinental Champion wasn't really liked because he never defended it. This was obviously that period when the IC title was seen as a joke, and you got to remember Vince is booking this at this time. I think his whole, since he turned heel on AJ, Shinsuke has just kind of like existed, and that's it. That's why for me he's one of the definite people that needs to move in the draft.
Yeah, I think he needs to move in the draft as well, particularly because we mentioned there he has had some high-profile programs, lots of Cody Rhodes. Yep. He's taken on Seth Rollins as well. When you think, right, well, where do you go? There's only one direction. Once you face all the top people, it's to go down. Obviously, if Cody goes to SmackDown, obviously that can pose a problem. But obviously, there are other people on SmackDown you could face in the meantime. Like an LA Knight, for example, could be a fun one. There are different people who can have different programs, so depending on what they want to do. But the character work for me has been better. But yeah, the wins and losses, not so much. But we'll have to wait and see how it will play out.
He needs a title run, like a world title run, and like, I can't see him getting either of the Raw, like the World or the WWE Championship at the minute. So NXT kind of makes the only shout. I mean, hell, give me Nakamura versus Karrion Kross as a story on NXT for that NXT Championship. Do you know what I mean? That sounds great.
Yeah, that sound that would been pretty well. I'm sure Sean would have a good job with that. To be fair, as well. There, Zayn suggesting Odyssey Jones should go back to NXT. Certainly, we've not even seen him appear on the main roster TV at all. Martin here says, "Hope we're doing well. Will Triple H take the brand split seriously this year, and will this lead to brand supremacy in this year's Survivor Series?" Two great questions there. So, I mean, you said earlier on here that it's been a bit non-existent, the draft, especially with the road to WrestleMania and stuff like that. But do you think actually it will be taken seriously when it will remain after the draft here?
My biggest problem with the draft for the longest time was always when they did it throughout the year, because it was always done like 3 or 4 weeks before Survivor Series, and then they would bang on about brand supremacy, and it's like brand loyalty, and it's like, how can you have brand loyalty for a guy that's been here 4 weeks? Now the fact that he's pushed it forward to now, like they've got it in time with essentially the NFL draft, because they do theirs around the same time, and kind of like fits in and get draft, essentially it's draft season. I think this will be the real test. The real telling point is if he is going to take it seriously, because there isn't many other times throughout the year you can book this draft in a logical place on the calendar. Like, the only other place for me that would make sense is directly after Survivor Series, where you've had your brand supremacy and whoever comes out on top. But it's a chance there for GMs to get rid of people that lost at Survivor Series, for example. So you would want to haggle, trade, do whatever. So I'm hoping that this is like, I think Triple H will do it justice this year, and we'll get a fairly decent draft out of it, because he's like, for instance, he's brought back King of the Ring. That got cancelled by Vince last year. So he's bringing back a lot of stuff that the crowd want to see, and a lot of people do like the draft. So I'm hoping that he does take it really seriously.
I think it'll be taken seriously as well. I think Triple H will do a good job of it. Like you said, it's his first proper draft here. Like, this is going to be all hands on from him. So I think it will be good. Will it be respected? I think it depends on who ends up where. Obviously, you've seen, for example, the Tamatonga Kevin Owens storyline come out. They say they were on different shows. That's not going to be upheld, I would imagine. And I'd like to see friction with Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce, like I mentioned at the start of the video, after this draft, so that it can lead to something at Survivor Series. Do I think it's actually going to happen? No, I don't. I don't believe it will do. But I'm even up for Raw versus SmackDown in War Games, to be fair. If they really wanted to do it, I think it could be something different. But I also like the fact that the storylines actually build to War Games as well. It's just sometimes it can lead to it's the same people that are in it. If you look with NXT, it was always the Undisputed Era. If you look with the main roster now, it's always Damage Control. It's always the Bloodline. So it all depends on how they want to do it. But I think we'll probably get the Bloodline Civil War as the main War Games match this year. They'll probably do one for the women as well at the time. So I'd like to see a bit of brand supremacy in one or two of the other matches with Raw versus SmackDown. But that's just me. I'm a traditionalist when it comes to Survivor Series. I like my 10-man or 8-man tags.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still love to do the whole brand supremacy and have NXT involved in it. But the problem is that when they did it in, 2019, when they did NXT SmackDown, the NXT roster was stacked with talent, with people that you could really believe that would win these matches. Like, we had Shayna Baszler in the women's triple threat match. We had Undisputed Era in the tag team triple threat match. There was just so much believable talent. Like, I'm not discrediting the NXT roster at the minute, but there's a lot of guys in there at the minute that, for me, still don't know what they're doing. Like, their characters aren't defined enough. And like I said, with the draft now, you get someone like Shinsuke Nakamura, Karrion Kross go back down there, boosters that roster a bit more. And then that way, when you get to Survivor Series, you can have NXT as a liable option there, and they can do the whole triple brand thing. Like I've said before on this channel, that I think the Big Four should be weekend events anyway. And I think if you used to do War Games as like you said, the Bloodline story, you can do the rest of the weekend as a normal Survivor Series, as a brand supremacy show.
I don't really like that idea. I've not always been a big fan of the idea of the weekend show events, but you sold me on that. I'd be pretty down for that.
That's what I mean, because there's so many titles nowadays that it kind of makes sense. Like, you can have, because now you can do your triple threat for your tag team titles, because each show has a tag team champion. Like, you couldn't do a triple threat for a women's mid card, but you could do a triple threat for the women's championship. You can do a triple threat for the men's championship. Do you know what I mean? There's just, the option is there to actually do it.
Absolutely. The realm of possibilities are endless. And now that Triple H is in charge, he says we can expect some unexpected stuff. So it starts with the draft. Let's see who we need to. See, it feels bad for Cameron Grimes. Never got a chance on the main roster to show his character work. But a fun fact for you, though, Cameron Grimes has already been in TNA. I do remember the time where Trevor Lee was a three-time X-Division champion. Coming back to TNA would make sense. And yeah, I do remember his time in there. That's where I first saw Trevor Lee back in the day. And I've got to say, I was a fan of his work there. But I was even more of a fan of his work when he was in NXT.
I hope he comes back and reinvents himself and just completely does a Drew / Cody and just completely reinvents himself and earns his way back to being called back to WWE again.
I wouldn't be surprised. Though. Give it a couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised if he came back.
Yeah.
Roger says, was we happy with the returns at TNA Rebellion? Like I said, I haven't seen the show, but I've seen the clip of Matt Hardy. I'm aware of Sami Callihan. NXT, have you seen anything with Rebellion, or do you?
I've seen the clips of everyone who's returned and stuff. The only thing I can say is that it's a positive for TNA having these names, especially Sami Callihan, who is kind of like diehard TNA, having Matt Hardy be there for the time being, even if he is still a free agent. The fact that TNA are able to use him for the next couple of months or however long period of time is good for TNA as a business because they will be able to draw in fans. I am sure we're going to get some sort of Hardy complex. Whatever, I can't even remember what they called it. In their final
deletion.
The final deletion match, yeah, and the Hardy compound. I mean, I'm expecting to see that again at some point. So it can only go upwards for TNA with having all these people return.
Yeah, absolutely. And I must admit, I have not seen the clip for this, but I'm aware Santana also returned on this show. And I've got to say, I'm really happy for Santana to be returning there. I actually got the chance to check out his interview with Chris Van Vliet. I highly recommend anyone who has not seen that to go and watch the interview out. Really, Santana opens up about a lot, and it's quite an eye-opening interview. It's a really good one. But stick here for the meantime. You can watch it afterwards. But Martin Career says, would you guys like to see a trade implementation to the brand split to add an end date, just like the NFL trade deadline? So I don't follow NFL. That's going to be a dislike to a lot of people. But you said you're aware of the NFL draft. So how would that sort of work then? Obviously, we have that, and then there's a chance to do trades afterwards if people are not happy.
Yeah, I believe that's how it works. Like, I'm not the most clued up when it comes to the NFL draft system, yeah, but I believe it's the case. Everyone has their draft picks, and then it just gives an opportunity to, like, normally I think what the NFL do as well is they trade off future draft picks as well. So for instance, there's however many teams in the NFL, they'll go, oh, I'll take this player for this player, plus I'll give you my first 2 picks of the next year. Do you know what I mean? In the draft system. So it could work, but then it kind of in WWE it just defeats the point of having the draft. What's the point in having? There's only 2 shows. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you've got 5 shows to like 5 shows to argue between, where like you have to really stretch and thin out your numbers. It's kind of like it's literally 2 shows. It's kind of like half of them are going to end up staying on the same show anyway. So I don't think it'd work.
For me, the idea of it, I'm trying to think back into the grapevine, and I'm sure of this back in 2004. I can be wrong, but I feel I'm right. Triple H was the Raw guy, was the top guy in the company, and he was drafted to SmackDown. And I'm sure that they did a trade after the draft was concluded where he went back to Raw, and I believe the Dudley Boys, and I want to say Booker T, but it could have been RVD. All of those got just moved to SmackDown as part of like a trade move that was done. So I suppose they can do it. And I'm not against trades being done throughout the year. We've seen it recently with Jey Uso and Kevin Owens.
It does work from a story point of view, but you have to have the story there. And it's kind of like I said earlier, I think most of the factions are going to get drafted as factions. So it's kind of like teams will be drafted as tag teams. And like, unless you're going to do, what was it? Was it Vince who famously split up the Dudley Boys one year in the draft? May have even been the same year. Yeah, unless you're going to do something like that. For a small story beat, I don't see the point. Like, unless they purposely want to split them up, I don't see the point.
Absolutely not there. Zayn says, nice NXT, nice TV. NXT, by the way, likes your draft showing there in the background. Martin, another question says, are they giving away a prediction with Logan Paul showing up on Raw next week? Is it kind of a bit of a possibility he could be a Raw superstar moving forward? He is currently a free agent, but been doing most of his work on SmackDown.
I would imagine it's either for the case of I wouldn't think he's going to drop that title. Do you remember? Was it Jeff Hardy one year lost the IC title, went to the next show and won the United States Championship? Do you know what I mean? Unless they kind of do that same sort of thing, unless they're going to do that with Logan, where he loses. It probably won't happen because Sami's only just won the IC title. So maybe, but then I think it might just be a case of it's a good way to get Logan Paul on Raw if he's going to stay on SmackDown. The thing with Logan is it's all down to his schedule, unfortunately. It's not down to... He's not obviously a 100% that he's a WWE guy all year round. He's a celebrity that comes in as and when, so it's whatever works best for him.
Absolutely. I would say that there is a reason he is going to be on Raw next week, and I think that he will be drafted to a show. I think this free agent stuff is going to go to the wayside. I don't think it's going to exist anymore. So I think Logan Paul will be attached to a brand. And I must admit, when I saw this, it made me wondered if Raw would be the place. But if he ends up on Raw, that means the IC champion would end up on SmackDown. And, well, that could mean a Sami Zayn or a Chad Gable could be going the other way, or even a Bronson Reed. Interesting.
Possible.
It's possible. C Nation says Triple H always wants superstars to go through adversity. It's okay for some wrestlers to not go adversity from time to time. I agree with that comment there, but I think it also works for certain super. I mean, you look, for example, Cody Rhodes, babyface that people get behind, sympathetic. Sami Zayn is another one of those storytelling babyfaces. When you look at Liv Morgan, I think she's turned heel, but I think people still really like her, so people still want her to do well. But at the same time, when you look at, for example, I don't know, I'm going to use NXT as the example. Obafemi walked in, won the breakout tournament, won the North American Championship. No problem for him. Heel, big bad dude. You know, it's different for those types, you know, which are the heels to get the non-adversity. It's the baby faces that seem to suffer and have to go through it.
Yeah. It's just always that thing in it when they WWE try to present them as one way, but the crowd really want them to be the other way because they like it's just the way the wrestling, the fandom has evolved over the years and how it all works. There's not much really I can say other than what you've just said. Really, it's kind of like it's just the way the product is nowadays.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, totally agree with that. Byron in Houses says, thank you for checking that, by the way. Byron Cutler says, Raw will win the draft, by the way, from the question from Martin. And also asking for Finn Balor versus Damian Priest at SummerSlam, please. It could happen. It could even happen before. It seems to be the teasers of the Judgment Day. It's not going to last. It's going to break while Rhea's away. It seems that Priest already saying that he could do this without the rest of them. It's going to be interesting. It's going to play out. I've got some ideas. I've got some ideas how I think that's going to go down, but this probably isn't the stream to do it because we're already 20 odd minutes behind the chat. So let's try and catch up with you all a little bit so we're on the same wavelength when the questions are coming in. CD says Roman Reigns got his revenge of Seth at the Royal Rumble 2022. Why create the moment at WrestleMania 40? Well,
Roman lost by DQ. That's the only reason why that story isn't finished yet because Roman didn't officially beat him. He just tapped him out, wouldn't break the submission, and end up getting a DQ loss. And technically, Seth still was the only guy to have beaten Roman in, 2 years at that point.
Took the words out of my mouth. There you go. Answered perfectly. Byron says the Angela family, Ilya Dragunov, Roxanne Perez, Carmella Hayes, and Baron Corbin as the predictions there to be called up from NXT. And I've got to say, I like a lot of those, and I can see, actually, I'm going to be honest here, I can see all of them happening. I think the D'Angelo family are going to come up. I think it'll be just Tony D and Stax. And I think they're going to be joined by one Giovanni after the draft.
Do you know what? If you're gonna have Ilya join Imperium, that's kind of the story going forward there. I like the sound of it. It just sucks for the two other guys that they've got in the D'Angelo family at the minute. Like they've just been added to that faction. If they are then forced to go back to NXT and reinvent themselves again, it's almost like Carmen Electra when they didn't bring her up with LWO. Do you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, a year later, she's come up and she's now part of El Legado del Fantasma again. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Carmen Electra, by the way, one of my favorites in the 90s there. But yeah, had a Baywatch moment there just for a moment. Anyway,
I have no answer for that, Steve.
Eric Douglas says, yes, they should be eligible, the champions. There we go. Zayn says, did we go to any of the UK live shows? No, I didn't know. I'm not local to the UK shows. Steve, did you?
No, dude, tickets are like gold dust. You can't get them. They sell out. It like because the product's so hot at the minute. They're gone the second they go on sale. Like the problem is I don't get notifications as to when these tickets go live. So it's kind of like I'll hear it on a grapevine and go, oh look, let me have a look, see if there's anything available. Oh, all gone.
All gone. Yeah, they are hot. Like hot tickets, hot cakes. Every time they come to the UK, they go very, very quickly. Sid asking, who is your wrestling hero? His is Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Who's your wrestling hero?
Ultimate Warrior was the reason why I got into wrestling as a kid, man. Like, I know he sucks as a wrestler, but dude, you give me unstable and you give me the rope shaking and you give me the face paint and the tassels and I'm all for it. And the perm, I'm all for it, man.
For me, I'm going to have to go Shawn Michaels. I think the Heartbreak Kid was one of the first match I ever watched and was along of the favorite wrestlers when I first started out. And I just think he has been unbelievable in telling a story and a bit of a controversial period when it went to the end of his first run. But when you go back to his second run as well, it's arguably even better than the first. So HBK will probably be the one now. He's booking NXT as well. Job's a good one. Gigi Jolin's booking has been awful, to be honest, lately. I agree with that. I'm not sure I'm feeling this Georgina storyline with Ariana Grace right now on NXT.
No, I mean, since the Toxic Attraction broke up, Gigi's just kind of been. I'm sure she was injured as well for some period of time, but yeah, I really want Gigi to succeed. Like I like Gigi's character. I like how they were presented as Toxic Attraction. I gutted that Mandy Rose got released and like they didn't get a chance to bring that faction to the main roster because I reckon they would have been probably at this if they'd been brought up last year when Mandy got released. I think it was last year. I reckon they would be in the exact same place where like Damage Control would be now. They'd be one of the top factions on the brand.
Completely agree. It was a shame it didn't work out. I think is probably the best way to put it because they really were onto something with that group at the time.
Absolutely.
They really were. It was a missed opportunity. Eric says, I wonder what Triple H has planned for Liv. I'm sure it's something incredible. We've suggested a few ideas already, potentially most of them involving her winning a championship. So fingers crossed, we have to wait and see, Eric, and hopefully it leads to good things going forward. Roger asks, are you happy that Sheamus has gone back to his old theme song, Too Many Lines? I love that song. Absolutely. I think that it's dare I say, it's a banger.
I preferred his more recent, like not the what you call it,
Fight Night, Braun and Brutus.
Not the fight, no, the one before that, but after the one everyone else is banging on about, like his one where he's in the spotlight. I much prefer that one.
Fair play. We all have our favorite. For me, this one is a particular favorite because when I hear it, I don't stop singing it. So that's usually the problem. So we could have a problem for the rest of this stream. Could break into some karaoke. But CD says, when was the last time Shinsuke Nakamura won a match? I couldn't tell you on the top of my head.
Against Seth.
Probably.
I think I'm sure he won a match against Seth, which was the reason why he got a shot at the title.
It must have been. It can only be. It can only be. It's been a while. We know that for sure. Says I'm not related to Cody. We have the same surname. Fair play to Sid. At least you could have played it to us. We'd have believed you.
Sid is your in kayfabe though, like Cody's is though.
Oh, that's a good question there. Sid will let us know, I'm sure, in a minute or two. Nick Nemeth should have won the TNA World Championship at Rebellion. Every wrestler doesn't need to go through adversity. He doesn't seem to be able to win a world title, does he? I don't know if that's the case. Is he not sticking around? I don't know the situation with that. I was sure Nick Nemeth was winning at Rebellion.
Yeah, I would have thought as well. Like I heard that he didn't win, and then I don't know. Maybe there's a bigger picture. Like maybe that they've got someone behind the scenes who has a great idea for a story down the line. But yeah, I'm as shocked as everyone else. I thought he was going to win.
Could be going for adversity, poor CD. There's a lot of it going around. Pierre in the house, good to see you, Pierre. Hope you're keeping well. And Roger asking a big question for us right now. Who will be King and Queen of the Ring? I've definitely got my King sorted. Not 100% on the Queen at the moment.
Chelsea Green as Queen of the Ring, because I think Chelsea needs something this year. If you're not going to give her a title or a tag team run, whatever, Chelsea Green is your Queen of the Ring. King of the Ring, probably a bit harder to pick. I'm going to say someone like who's someone who could really use on the main roster? Apollo Crews. Why not? Apollo Crews isn't doing anything. Give him a shot at King of the Ring. Give him a character for the next 12 months.
And as much as I'd love to see him do it, I unfortunately, Apollo, I'll be shocked if he's even in it. But Xavier Woods won it last time around. He's the current reigning, defending King of the Ring. But for me, I can't look past Gunther. the man's thrown his name in the hat now. Gunther is perfect for King of the Ring. This is like the old days in the 90s. He would go in, he would win it. He wouldn't have to do the King gimmick, which is the thing that I dislike with King of the Rings, when they play around with the gimmick afterwards and just completely, ditch what they were for about the next 6 months until they drop it. So Gunther for me would be someone that would be, he's the ring general anyway, so it kind of fits with King of the Ring as well. So yeah, he's definitely my pick for the men's. For the women's, I think that is harder at this particular moment. Like you said, I can see it being more of a breakout style than actually being an established one. But I will actually go and put my neck out and say Jade Cargill to win it at the moment if I had to pick one, because again, she's someone I think will be propelled to superstardom. However, I do think she will be probably winning women's tag team championships in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great shout, but I agree with you. I think it is a breakout moment. It's like, for me, I think it's just Chelsea. Chelsea's had so many good opportunities this year. She's put on such great character work. I think you give her that stigma of being Queen of the Ring, she's going to knock it out the park. Just as another shout for King of the Ring, Finn Balor. Why doesn't the Prince finally become a king?
It could work, and then he could get a title shot. That would actually be an opportunity. Was
Exactly.
in the final. He was the one that lost to Xavier Woods the last time they did it, funnily enough. Roger Ross, do we think Nick Aldis will ever wrestle in WWE? I'm going to say yes. I think he will. I think he'll face Cody Rhodes at some point.
Yeah, I like the idea of that, actually. Now you're playing for that whole NWA match at All In from whenever, what year it was. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's a good shout. Yeah, I wouldn't say no. Like, why not have him and Scrap Daddy be champions, tag team champions? Yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
Why not have him and Scrap Daddy Pierce as tag team champions? Obviously, Pierce used to be a wrestler as well back in the day.
That could work pretty well. That could be fun.
Yeah.
They would get on though as GMs though, and I don't want that. I want them to really hate one another. I want Adam Pearce at the end of this show. Go, I need a drink. I need him to just say that line for me. Probably will myself after the amount of videos coming out this last week or two. Byron says my SummerSlam card would be Finn Balor versus Damian Priest, Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton, Bayley versus Alexa Bliss, and Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley. Love the sound of all of those. To be fair, it will sound like a great little match card.
Yeah, hopefully, obviously, it's the interesting part is getting to those matches. Like I said, Balor Priest is a great shout. Rhodes Orton is, I'm sure you teased it for your prediction for Mania next year. I originally thought of it for Mania next year, so I'm pretty sure that will happen at some point. Bayley, Alexa Bliss, yeah, why not? Liv Morgan and Rhea, obviously, fingers crossed if she's back from injury.
I have to wait and see how it will play out, but a great little match card that we like that. I'm so happy that WWE Championships are tag team championships, easy for me to say, aren't blue anymore, because it won't be weird if you get drafted to Raw. Don't get started, CD. We are so happy those titles have changed. It is much better. The names have changed. It's a good time to be a fan of the draft and tag team wrestling at the same time, because for a while it was pretty frustrating seeing past the parcel.
Yeah, that was my worry, is that they were gonna be have some sort of blue on them, and I was like, oh my god, they are the SmackDown tag team titles. Whereas, obviously, the world ones have that bit of red on them, and I was like, I really hope they didn't do the same thing. So they've dodged a bullet with that one. I've just gone with really good looking tag team titles.
Absolutely, yeah. Particularly the ones on SmackDown. Beautiful. Pierre says tomorrow night want to see Mercedes Monday turn heel and win a Nightingale. Tired of the nice girl and like her more as a heel. Certainly a heel tendency, stealing the moment there at Dynasty after Willow won that championship. So I think you could be onto something. I think it could be happening. But going back to the draft though, asking do you think Roxanne Perez should be a part of the main roster because of the draft? Because I would love to have Roxanne on SmackDown. I think Roxanne will be called up in the draft. I think she's losing that NXT Women's Championship tonight. Funnily enough, without being pinned either.
It's a good shout for her to come up. Like I said, just hopefully she doesn't get lost in the stacked roster that they already currently have on the women's roster on Raw and SmackDown.
I think the same. I hope that she won't be, but I think the fact she was featured on Raw, I think they'll find a plan for her and something to do. And I actually think SmackDown is the right place for her. If Bayley remains there, for example, Bayley's great working with younger talent as well, making new stars. And I think I can see SmackDown being almost that proving ground show a little bit of the new stars. Yeah, workhorse and just building people up. And I think Roxanne could be a great program for Bayley, for example, throughout the summer or the autumn or whatever they want to do. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. C-Nation says the only issue with the tag team championships on the Raw side are red, so it'll be weird on SmackDown. Yeah, that was your little gripe with the world tag team titles, was the bit of red on them.
Yeah, but then apparently the old ones used to have, didn't the old ones used to have a red globe or something on the titles, which is why they've kind of paid homage to it. And so I can understand why they've done it. But yeah, my first initial was you just still made them look like they're the Raw Tag Team titles.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. Zayn went to McDonald's, did the broken Matt Hardy gimmick, and people looked at him like he was stupid. Yeah, if people don't know it, they're probably going to not understand it. So maybe not in Mackie D's. But hey, what did you order? I'm a big Mackie D guy. PS says, I also think Ilya Dragunov should be drafted to Raw. Interesting stuff. I think wherever Gunther goes, Dragunov should go.
Yeah, agreed.
Cena says, I remember the one time John Cena went from SmackDown and got drafted back to Raw. Absolutely, it was in the same draft as well, which leads to a good question, actually, that I wanted to ask NXT Steve Jones. And people can get involved in the chat as well here. But some of the most shocking draft moves you can remember.
I don't really have necessarily draft moves. I have draft moments. Obviously, Cena 2011 being drafted to one show and then straight back to the other again by the end of the night, which was kind of stupid and shocking, yes, but again, kind of stupid because it's the waste of using 2 draft picks essentially. Bálor 2016 being one of the call-ups, like first 5 call-ups as well. Again, just it made NXT feel part of WWE when you got Bálor being called up. Triple H going to SmackDown 2004 just to be traded back later because, you know, again, story beats. Kane going to Raw in 2008 when he was the ECW champion. Hey, no problems with it, but the problem is he's got the ECW championship. It's not like it's a WWE, it's ECW, and he's not on the show. Paul Heyman 2004 when he got drafted by Bischoff. Yeah, why would that such a thing? The wild card rule, obviously, because you know they wanted an excuse for people to move brands and stuff when you've just had a draft. And the other one was the couple of years ago when like the first 10 names of the list got leaked online, and they still went through with the same first 10 entries on the show, and it was not a surprise because everyone knew that it's already because it had already been leaked.
I tell you what, you have got a who's who of history there of the WWE draft. That's brilliant there. I can only add like 2 more off the top of my head, which is Jim Ross being drafted to SmackDown for Raw. It was 2008 because he didn't know about it either, and you could see he was PO'd. Yep. He was not a happy bunny for the rest of that show. But he did get to call actual Mick Foley throughout the summer 2008, which I think he actually quite enjoyed in the end. But the other one for me is actually going back to the very big first draft as well, when the fact that Ric Flair, who was the GM for Raw, was taking all Vince McMahon's picks. So he drafted The Undertaker. He got the famous shot of The Undertaker's face being, I've been drafted here. And of course, then the NWO being taken as well for that point. And of course, the NWO was taken because Vince McMahon decided, after being convinced by Kurt Angle, to make him the second draft pick, which then Vince, I think, instantly regretted. But yeah, those are some of the other shocking and fun moments from back in yesteryear. But shout out to Noob and Co, by the way. I did see your comment there where you said hello, but I'll call up when I can. Let's get to the comments that we're at the current present stage. We've gone through quite a few. I'm now lost where we are. Here we go. I'm now in the right place now. PS says, I think the Braun Breaker should go to Raw because I want Braun to be a top guy in WWE because he's only been in squash matches so far. I think Braun would certainly get a bit more time on Raw. Like we said, if it's an idea that Adam Pearce can take Nick Aldis's signature people, then that could be quite fun. But I also want to see him and Baron Corbin carry on their thing as well. I think they've done great work as a team, and I want to see it continue for the time being.
I think they're going to. I think if Baron does get called back to the main roster, they're going to be separated. As much as I'm like you, I wouldn't mind seeing them carry on as a tag team. But the next 12 months, I think, are going to be massive for Braun Breaker. I think he's going to really establish himself as a top mid card guy, and then by the end of the next 12 months, he'll be on the precipice of being top of the card guy.
Absolutely, yeah. I think he's got a very bright future ahead, Braun Breaker, and you can see with the way he's in ring, it's just amazing. Byron here just adding a couple more of those to that SummerSlam card he had there. Logan Paul, LA Knight, and Sami Zayn versus Ricochet. Some good matches as well there. PSA and CM Punk normally would be on SmackDown this Friday and Raw next week. Normally, I guess he would be, yeah. He's injured at the moment. Maybe we'll make a surprise appearance. Maybe he will be drafted. Where do you think he'll end up? I'm guessing wherever Drew goes, CM Punk will not be far behind.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I imagine I imagine Priest, Punk, and Drew are all going to end up on the same show by the time we get to next week, just for the pure fact that you've got the story to tell with Clash at the Castle, with Punk, with Drew, and with Priest, just because Priest got that world title, and it kind of makes sense for Drew to kind of follow that championship wherever it's going. In terms of Punk, though, I wouldn't be against essentially, like, you kind of know he's going to go wherever Drew is, but for anyone who's currently on the sidelines injured, I'd like them to actually be free agents until they come back, because then that way I think there's a future opportunity for them to do something creative story wise when they come back. So I imagine with Judgment Day they'll all get drawn to one show, but like I said, with Punk, he's not in a faction, he's just injured. Keep him as a free agent, then when he comes back he goes wherever. Anyone else is injured, a Wesley for example, free agent until he comes back.
It can work. I think it can work, and I think when you look at it, depends how long these superstars are out for as well, for example. Yeah. But like you say, if they have revenge or something, plans can change in the meantime. And of course, if they forget that, I suppose with the draft, it can make things a bit difficult. But
I can't see a reason. I was going to say I can't see a reason why anyone's going to draft Seth because he's injured. He's just had an operation on his knee. What's the point in drafting Seth? You're not going to use him for 5 months. So I would just say keep injury people that are injured as free agents. Have the whole, again, this could actually play into Survivor Series. Have that thing with Pierce and Nick Aldis. Do you know what I mean? It kind of all makes sense. And then like whoever they recruit can be then part of their Survivor Series team. Do you know what I mean?
The plot thickens. It does. I don't even need to say what I'm going to say anymore because it's irrelevant. That comment just trumped it. No, it trumped it. It doesn't need to be said. Erik says, I'm wondering why NXT doesn't have a lot of call-ups, especially with so many people being main roster ready. I'm guessing you're assuming that's space and time on the shows.
You say main roster ready, yes, but like I said, there's so many, like, NXT for the women is perfect place at the minute. They're about to introduce a second title. It's the perfect place for every woman to be in NXT at the minute because there's no space. Like the fact that we're getting Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair as a tag team at the minute because there's no space for them on the main card is my point as to why the women are going to struggle if they come up. Roxanne, don't get me wrong, great talent. Probably will get called up. Just hope she doesn't get lost in the shuffle somewhere. Because then we get to the point where, like for instance, Cameron Grimes has just been released because he's been sitting on the sidelines for a year, 2 years, doing nothing. And I don't want anyone else to come up and follow that exact same fate where they're not used for that prolonged period of time. In terms of the men, don't get me wrong, there are some great wrestlers down there. For me, it's characters. There's a lot of people down there that don't have established characters. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of the current iteration of NXT and how it's presented, and like Black and Gold will always be my thing because I just love the characters. I loved everything that went on during that time. But I sit there and I look at is it Briggs and Jensen? It's like it's generic hillbilly tag team. And it's kind of like there's nothing that makes them stand out from everyone else. Do you know what I mean? When they've got that something about them that earns that right to be on the main roster to say, oh, we are this tag team. We're here for this reason. It should be the same with anyone. But the fact that Dragunov is like rumored to be called up and be part of Imperium when he's just been NXT champion. Do you know what I mean? It's like you've got to have something about you to be called up. And like, Carmelo Hayes has had a great run as a heel, but he's going to come up and be a mid-carder on the main roster because he's got to go through that point of establishing himself now on the main roster. And there's not a lot of like time, there's not a lot of places for them to do that on the main roster. That's why I don't want that many NXT guys coming up.
I think it's a fair argument, obviously, like you say, that if it's building and making your own new opportunities, new horizons. Not everyone has seen NXT. Not everyone watches on a weekly basis and seeing what's going on. So I totally get that argument, and I do think there'll be more than what you've predicted. But I'll obviously save that for my predictions with it will come out tomorrow. But at the same time, I look at it and say that it's going to be interesting because, like you say, if they don't find a way on TV, then they're not going to be there in a year's time. And it's important they're still there in a year's time. It's better to be doing something in WWE than just rushing someone to Raw and SmackDown. There needs to be that space, there needs to be that direction, needs to be that story. So I think that's sort of what it comes down to, I guess, really. But
yeah, that's I mean, I don't want to see great wrestlers. Like I love Cameron Grimes. I don't want to see him get released from WWE, but I just don't want people to unfortunately follow that same path. And in fact, what's probably been a curse from a lot of people called up from NXT, that they get called up, they don't find anything for them, they don't establish themselves on the roster, and they just ultimately end up getting let go. I mean, dude, we can ring off a name of guys that have been let go that should never have been let go. Keith Lee, Aleister Black. Do you know what I mean? There's two off the top of my head. Should never have been let go. But I want these people to be in WWE because I am a WWE guy. Yes, I enjoy watching that product. I want to see some of my favorite guys be in WWE. And if they can't find a place on that roster, like I'd rather them stay in NXT than have a place, have a storyline, have a purpose. Whether it's, for instance, you're just a gatekeeper for NXT and like you're essentially what Cassius Ohno used to be, and it kind of be you had to beat Cassius Ohno to get that main roster call up. At least you have a place and a purpose on NXT, whereas you may go to the main roster and never find that.
It's true. It's very true. I can't add any more to that. You've thoroughly covered that topic pretty well. And I've got to say a massive thank you. No, not at all. It was very good, very detailed, and very well put together. But Martin, you're very kind, my friend. Honestly, you're making my night here. Thank you so much again for the $2 super chat here. Will Lily and Charlie get a call up?
You'll have to remind me who Lily and Charlie are because I ain't got a clue.
The Lily doll that was with Alexa Bliss back in the day there, I'm guessing is where Martin's going with this.
Who's Charlie? Hopefully Lily never comes back ever again. But Charlie, I think hopefully Lily gets released. That's a definite one that should be released. But Charlie, I ain't got a Scooby who that is, Martin.
I'm not sure, Martin. Martin, give me more detail. We'll look for the comment. We'll just bring it straight up. So don't worry. We've got to do the super chat. We'll bring it straight up. We'll find it with that Charlie. Maybe, I don't know. Was it Chucky? Maybe thinking of? I'm not sure. But hey, we're good here. Ray says he's not in a good mood. NXT, you'll be in a good mood about this. Arsenal winning 5-0 today.
I'm in a very good mood. Thank you very much, Ray.
Zane here says that Drew got beat by one-arm CM Punk. You can't argue with that. And also
blindsided, man.
Absolutely. And who is the worst signing in WWE at all time? Sid is not a fan of Jade Cargill. I'd have to highly disagree with that. Yeah, blasphemy for that one for me as well there. I don't know who the worst signing of all time is.
I'm trying to... maybe Mordecai? I'm trying to think of someone... let's be fair. Let's think of someone... in the last 5 years. I'm trying to think like... I'm trying to be...
Have a think about it. I'm just going to quickly sort my daughter out. I'll be 2 seconds and I'll be back.
Go for it. Let's have a look. Let me have a quick butchers and see WWE worst signings. Because you could say someone like Mordecai, because do you know what I mean? But that was a case of the story was a gimmick, and let me have a quick. Oh no! I already have the answer. There is only one answer. It is the correct answer, and it will always be the correct answer. I'm going to wait for Steve to come back, but I'm just going to read off some other suggestions here. DDP was okay. Just again, bad narrative. Sin Cara, no, not really. Just kind of again, it was just dodgy. Karma got pregnant. So you can't really argue with the fact that someone got pregnant as why they were a bad signing, but I think it was just bad timing, maybe. Cain Velasquez is a bad signing. Let's get that right. They got that wrong with Brock Lesnar. Like, I don't understand why they ever did it. Karrion Kross maybe has an argument for why he could potentially be the worst signing ever. Kind of dominated a period of NXT where he was the only guy that was over 6 foot, I think, and he was champion and was squashing everyone. Has a bad call up, gets given some dodgy mask. I was about to use some reference there, but I didn't. Gets released, comes back, and has done nothing since. So maybe the fact that they've signed him twice, that could be a shout as to why he could be the worst signing ever. Who else? Someone else has said Vader. I wouldn't say Vader. Like, again, I think he's a very underutilized character, and I think Vince just booked him wrong. I have the correct answer. Like, there is a lot of people, like, I've just seen there as well. Someone else said Nia Jax. And Nia Jax, I feel, is going to do vastly better under Triple H than what she probably ever did under Vince, just for the fact that she's being booked correctly, like how she's supposed to be, is a monster. So Nia Jax, I think, will succeed. I have the correct answer, Steve, and I was waiting for you to come back before I gave this answer.
Give it to us.
Eva Marie.
Oh, it hasn't worked out all the time, has it?
As twice, like I was saying, Karrion Kross was another one because the fact that the guy's been hired twice hasn't really done anything. But Eva Marie came back that second time, did absolutely nothing, and then got released again. So I would say Eva Marie.
There you go. Eva Marie is the shout there for that one there. Martin also, by the way, Charlotte is the doll that Alexa gave to Charlotte during their feud. I remember it now.
I don't know. Let me Google it while you quickly talk about it because I haven't got a clue.
It out, haven't you? You've blocked it out.
I can't say I remember it. Like I obviously know I know of the other one. Oh my god. What is that? You're talking about that one, right?
Yes.
Oh my god, I thought that was just the other one with a women's championship title. The teeth, man. It's the teeth.
Raw or SmackDown? Where do you want to see it?
I tell you what, let's get a cinematic match between the two dolls, yeah? We can just have like a really bad puppet show, like it's what is it? Punch and Judy.
There you go, all sorted for it. Martin, I hope you're satisfied with that. Thank you for the $2 super chat. We really do highly appreciate it. It's very kind of you to do so. Sid says, when do you see AJ Styles retiring? Hopefully never, but probably realistically in the next 12 to 18 months.
He's got to have the Finn feud. Like, I want to see that feud first because it's just something like AJ kicked him out of Bullet Club in Japan, and we've never really had a conclusion to their story. So I want that first. But same as you, 12 to 24 months, I'd say.
I would say that he finishes his contract up in WWE. He has a retirement match at WrestleMania next year. And I think that he'll go off and do a couple of dream matches elsewhere before retiring. Will Ospreay being one of them. Maybe Kenny Omega being another one. And I think his last match may even be in the TNA ring.
I was going to say it's going to be with Ric Flair.
Last ever match, part 24. I think that it maybe just as a way outside of WWE, just to sort of give back to TNA and just do just one last match there before he retires, I reckon.
Yeah, I was going to say, because he's very close to being in WWE as long as he was in TNA, apparently. Like, I'm pretty sure he's almost surpassed how long he was in TNA now for how long he's been in WWE.
He may have done. He's not far off if he hasn't. I think
he's not far off it. I think he's got like 11 years in TNA and like 10 years in WWE. So by the time he leaves WWE, he'll be about the same length.
There you go. There you go. Hopefully never, though, Sid, is the answer for that one. Pierce says, I think they're building Liv Morgan's world title reign. Victory, Becky Lynch, for me, will be a transitional champion to Liv. I think Liv will win the title to Becky by cheating. And I think that will solidify the heel turn as well by cheating as well. I like that suggestion from here, something we didn't discuss earlier.
It would be a good shout. It's a good way to get some heel heat on Liv, I suppose. The fact if she cheats to win over Becky.
Absolutely. We're going to do about another just under 10 minutes. So we're going to try and get through everyone rapidly on this one. And make sure we get all your questions because I don't want to miss any of them out. That's what I mean by that. Sid says, I went to the O2. Fantastic. That was a great time. Wayne Rooney, Anthony Joshua were there. Drew cut a promo on Wayne Rooney. Amazing. How fun that would have been. That would have been pretty darn
Didn't
cool.
Wayne Rooney have a spot with someone else previously at an O2 show?
Was it Wade Barrett?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I think so.
Took a right-hander as well, didn't he? That too.
Yeah.
He probably had some bad news that day. But Noob says, hello. Hope you're doing well, Noob. Now I can get your question up now at last. Now says, what will happen to Damage Control moving forward? Kairi Sane might possibly get a push. Dakota Kai might win Money in the Bank. Io chasing the women's title and Oscar give her a redemption story. That's what Noob wants. I think what's going to happen moving forward, I think they're going to Raw. And I think that the women's tag team title division for them will prosper more because they have most of the tag teams on Raw, to be honest. I think that's what I see happening. But I can see Io Sky chasing for the other top championship on there, perhaps held by Liv, perhaps held by Becky. Not sure who it will be. Dakota Kai is an interesting one because she's with this group. For how long will they turn on her? And we still had the match with Bayley and Dakota Kai properly for this title. So There is some interesting stuff we could go on Damage Control. I'm interested as a group, but unfortunately, I don't see the heights that Noob sees.
Yeah, I mean, Money in the Bank is a very far stretch for there's someone who essentially is playing a bit part character at the minute. Like the focus isn't really about her. Like if you used to say 12 months time when she's had a decent storyline and a feud with someone, then possibly, but not at the minute. Like I think uh there's a few names you could say for Money in the Bank this year, but unfortunately Dakota Kai I don't even think makes the match at this point.
It's a shame, isn't it? There's all of them are very talented women, and they've done pretty well with WWE. Let's be fair, but yeah, at the moment, I mean, I'd like to see Kairi Sane get a push. I would like to see that. I would say, but at the moment, I can see the Kabuki Warriors continue as the unit that they are. I think they're doing good for that tag team division.
Yeah, I think that tag team division really needs to step up in the next 12 months because of like how many women are in. Again, I'll say it again, how many women are in that roster. You're not all going to get screen time, so that really has to become a really big point this year, and they have to start driving home some really good stories with it just to get the women on TV.
Absolutely. C Nation's got Gunther winning the King of the Ring. We share prediction there, and Andrade is the pick there from Byron, which I think is actually not a bad shout. Then Kairi Sane for the women as well. Maybe Queen Roxy for Eric Douglas there. Roxanne Perez, that'd be a great push to start off there for her. That'd be amazing. Noob says use that WrestleMania losing streak. I'm guessing for Oscar as a storyline. Heck, she's doing a weekly open challenge like John Cena, Adam Copeland did. Yeah, she could do. I mean, she I think that will turn to a storyline if it comes to that case that she isn't winning at WrestleMania. They'll do it one year, but she'll finally win a match.
What's the deal with Satomura at the minute on NXT? Is she still wrestling or is she a trainer or what? Because you know what I mean? I think that's not a bad reason to have her come up to the main roster and do a feud with Asuka. Do you know what I mean? I think those two are main new match could probably kill it.
They probably would kill it. I mean, she still can go massively in the ring. I think she's more doing training though at this particular time. But even as like a motivation, come on, get your act together, win at WrestleMania. I'll train you, get you ready for it. Like that could work as well. So wouldn't be a bad one. Sid asking you the greatest tag team of all time.
That's a tough one.
It could be a while. I feel the same.
Do you know what? I wouldn't normally pick them, but for the fact that every time I saw them in a match and I didn't want them to win, they always won. So I'm going to say Edge and Christian. Because that whole run with the Dudleys and the Hardys, every time there was a match with those three guys, Edge and Christian were always the team that I didn't want to win, and they were always the team to win.
There you go. I'm going to go for the Dudley Boys purely for the amount of tag team titles they've won throughout their career. They must have won like 30 different tag team championships wherever they went. They won gold, so they will be my pick there.
And the 3D was the most protected finisher in wrestling. I think only one person has ever kicked out of it when they've done it.
They really? I didn't know that information.
Yeah. It was a match. It was in TNA as well. The one person that kicked out of it.
Oh, interesting. Martin Gris says, where's Gable Stevenson? Probably in catering. You're probably right. We got put the briefcase on Kevin Owens, says Byron. Absolutely would not be against that there. I've got the t-shirt that says do it. I'm a full-on KO fan today. And C Nation says Kevin Owens is my prediction for winning Money in the Bank. Like that indeed there. Martin is heading out, but can't wait for the draft. Should be a lot of fun. And we'll be expecting your guys' content. Well, you can look forward to it, Martin. There'll be more content draft related dropping this week. So hopefully we'll give yourself on the results as well. C Nation says that Chad Gable needs to get rid of the goofy Alpha Academy and get the Creed brothers.
Give it time.
Alpha Academy, he's asked them to make sure he wins those with the Intercontinental title. They're not going to do that, but the Creeds will.
Give it time. Give it time. Give it time to breathe.
Give it a couple of weeks. May even be 10 days. We'll see. Zayn says LOD is the greatest tag team for me. I can see why you'd make that argument. They were a pretty badass tag team and were awesome back in the day. And CD says that Sami Zayn also kicked out the 3D, but it was for the Usos 1D. Absolutely. So there you go. Dudley. Maybe the Dudleys one was better.
Always. It's what's called 3D.
Higher number.
It's a multiple of 1. Yeah, exactly. It's a higher number.
It's all in the math, ladies and gents. That's pretty much it. So I think we've covered pretty much all the questions that we wanted to cover in the stream. So I want to say a massive thanks to everyone that has been involved on this one. NXT, is there anything you would like to add before we wrap up the stream today?
Nah, man, just that's it's going to be an exciting weekend. It's an excuse for WWE to make a spectacle out of it and really gas up and make something hopefully special out of the draft and make it feel like something to look forward to every year now going forward.
Hopefully, indeed, that would be great to see if it's a successful draft as it has been. And Zayn is going to his usual place after this stream. It's not PG, so we won't put it on the screen. But thank you, Zayn. Put it on the screen. Why not? Enjoy, Zayn. Knock yourself out. But Sinesh just says.
I was going to make a crew joke as well, then I thought I'd better not. Oh dear. It's that time of night.
It's our time to go, ladies and gents. Look after yourselves and each other. There's plenty of videos on this channel right now, so go and check them out regarding the draft, and we'll be back with more videos this week, including tomorrow. I will have the predictions, my predictions on Thursday, Wrestling YouTube, and on Friday onwards, we've got results on the way. Take care. See you next time.